George fit in. But wasn't Josephine the youngest?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go over it again. Now we're talking to the Thompsons, your brothers and sisters here?
I'm talking about my dad's brothers and sisters,
Okay.
as I can remember.
Well, here,
And just
Oh yeah, you got the whole family right there.
name them off.
you can name them, I can't.
Well, that's Burton. Dad, Martha, Benjamin. Which one's Lauren?
That must be Lauren.
And who's he?
I don't know who they are.
That's Josephine. This is...
Seven kids, were there? Oh, wait a minute, she's got them down here. Vivian, George, this is Vivian.
Oh,
George, baby, Martha, Ben, Lauren, Burton,
yeah.
Amy, Joseph, Josephine. Now, where did she get that?
Who wrote that?
Norma Jean. Where did she get that? Unless it's on the back of this.
Yeah, it might be on the back.
And then she took it off of there to put it on there to photograph.
Yeah.
And your father was which?
Pardon?
Your father was George.
George.
This is the,
George Edgar.
well,
Okay, we'll get a picture of that in a minute. Oh, that's all my writing.
is that your writing?
It's all my writing.
It is.
You and I sat down probably 6 years ago and did that.
Yes, I don't remember.
I did all the little yellow stickers in there.
You did that.
You and I sat down when your memory was really good,
Yes, I don't
and you
remember.
told me every one of them. And I wrote them down so
With
that
me, it isn't a case of my memory not being good. I did not know, and I never took the time to check it out. That's partly my fault. Or all my fault, but I never did know.
So that was the Thompson clan. That was the Thompson family. Where were they from?
Up around Delta and Fayette.
Well, but then originally from over in England.
Any idea where?
England.
Where in particular? Anywhere?
I don't know what the towns were.
I have no idea either.
Okay. And so who came over? Any idea? Okay.
Nope.
I don't have any of that.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty good. I didn't know he did that.
Okay. So no more pictures for a second. No more pictures. So your father was George.
George Edgar.
George Edgar Thompson. Now, what kind of work did he do?
Farming and politician.
Yeah,
Oh, he did. He built some houses, remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, he built the houses.
Where?
Some over here on Sackett Street in Maumee, and that duplex on Parkside Boulevard.
1412 Parkside, because we lived in it.
Yeah, you lived there.
And then he built on Hazelhurst and Hoyles and Homewood.
Those I don't know
And
about.
those, I drove the horses while he used the scraper to dig the basements for the guy. But I can't think of the name of that contractor anymore that he had working with him.
I wouldn't know.
That's the funniest thing. The other night, I met a fellow that lives on Prospect yet. And this fellow, this contractor lived on Prospect in those old days. And then Lauren lived on one of those streets right near Prospect at one time.
Tell me about your father's farming, what he planted, where his farm was, all those sorts of things.
Well, to my knowledge, it was on the old Chicago Pike, which is now Airport Highway.
Where McDonald's is.
And I might also tell you that one night after when I first went out there. Well, Frisch's was the first one in there, I think.
I don't remember who was.
Well, anyway, I went out there to eat, and I sat there and I cried because across the street where we had hauled hay and shocked wheat and cut corn, all concrete.
Yeah, I have some spring
That's
meadows
that
on that
shopping
side.
center over there now.
Yeah.
All concrete. I hate them to cut down trees and cover up sod or grass or... And here was all of this good farmland covered with concrete.
And the Martins that owned the farms, land wouldn't sell.
Yeah,
Pa had to rent it
Dad didn't own that farm. He didn't own it. We
on the
worked it.
side. On the north side where Spring Meadows is, he never owned because they would never sell. He had to rent. But on the south side, then, from McCord Road down, oh, it wasn't half a mile, and then back into the creek area.
Used to go down in the creek, in the woods we called it, and with a creek running through it. Pick violets and adder tongues and all kinds of spring beauties and
spear carp and the puddles after the high rains in the spring.
So you grew up on a farm, working on a farm, and George was married to
Mary Mooney.
Mary Mooney. So her whole side was the Mooney family.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how many children were there growing up on the farm and on the Chicago Pike? That was your address on the What was your address?
we didn't have a number that day.
RFD.
They've numbered them all now, but I couldn't
Yeah.
even tell you. 5,500 or something, I don't know.
Okay.
There was no...
So you grew up on a farm. Tell me about the place that you grew up on. What was it like? The house, the...
The house I was born in, Dad moved back, put part of it into a new house in the front, which was a standard type bedroom bath. The other one was the one I liked. It had that porch all along the... Well, I think you got pictures of that where the horses are tethered or tied and as I remember, there was a summer kitchen on that old house, and there was what we called a summer kitchen. Well, that's where you did your vegetables, and I think the old ice box sat out there with a pan underneath to catch the water, and there were 2 stairways. Do you recall? And you couldn't, if you wanted to go up the front part of the attic or upstairs, you had to go up the front stairway. If you wanted to get up the back part, you had to go down and go up the stairway that was off of this summer kitchen.
That part I don't remember.
That always...
Because when you went in the door to the kitchen from this, then you turned to the right and went down to the basement.
Did your father build that house?
Well, whoever, somebody helped
The
build
one
it.
we ended up in, he built, or...
So he owned the land on the south side of McCord,
Yeah.
on the south side.
Yeah. 23.5 acres or some fraction.
And that's where you grew up. And tell me all the names of your brothers and sisters from the oldest to the youngest.
My sister Helen, the oldest.
She born...
She's 9 years older than I. My brother Robert was next, and he's 7 years older than I. My brother Morris was next, and he's 2 years older than I, and then I came along.
When were you born? When were you born?
1913, which makes me 77 years old,
She's just a kid yet.
which makes him 85.
85?
Well, no. it's 84, till next June.
Where'd you go to school? Tell me about where you went to school, what you remember
Right
about
where your Aunt Norma Jean is teaching now, Springfield Township High School. That's what it was called when I went to school.
When I went, it was called Holland High School.
And when I went, it was called Springfield Township, same school.
I have to look at it, and I think it was. So,
Mine was Springfield Township.
So what do you remember about school? Tell me about school, going to that school, that living in that area. Tell me about that.
We walked to school. If I went across the fields, it wasn't quite as far.
kitty cornered from Airport and McCord, just west of Airport and McCord, and we cut kitty cornered across.
Are you putting this on tape now? Have you got your tape recorder going?
Yeah, and I'm making some notes here too. So tell me about, I mean, were there many people in your classroom?
I think there were,
Well, my graduating class was 11,
and that's all there were in mine.
but my sister that was 2 years older than me, she had to finish high school in Wade High School in
It
Toledo.
was only a 3-year high school at that time, Springfield was.
She had to ride the interurban downtown, transfer to a streetcar, and go over on the east side.
So she stayed with Aunt Lottie and Grandma Mooney part of the time while
Yeah.
she was going to wait. But she still had to go across the river. And I spent all 12 years right there at Springfield.
And you?
No, I graduated out of Holland.
And I only got bawled out once.
Why?
I was running in the hall. And I ran right into the superintendent. That's the only time I ever remember being bawled out. I remember my brother Morris and I were in the same class. And of course we were seated according to initial. So I had to sit beside him. J.R. Boone was the teacher. And Morris was very cagey. If he didn't know the answer, he'd get around it by asking a question or something, you know. The teacher got frustrated. Of course, I didn't blame Morris for being mad at me sometimes, because I kept a very neat notebook, and I knew most of the answers to all the questions, and they'd always bring that up as an example and pass my notebook around for the rest of them to look at. I did. I kept I've got a couple in here of my old notebooks. But anyway, this J.R. Boone is teaching, and he asked Morris a question, and Morris, in his usual, I guess he didn't know the answer or something, anyway, he aggravated J.R. Boone, and J.R. Boone had a loose leaf notebook in his hand, and he threw it at Morris. The only problem was it hit me. Yeah, you wouldn't know about that either, would you?
No, I don't remember that anybody ever threw stuff.
Yeah, J.R. Boone threw that book.
They used to have paddles.
Mrs. McElwain used the paddle on Morris.
Who was this Morris guy? What was he like? I mean, I know he was your brother, but what was he like? We never knew him.
Well, it's Pearl's husband.
Hard worker.
Yeah.
Just
Was he funny? Was
in
he?
fact, I always, and this is something else I don't think that Robert knows. I got mad at Robert because when we were sent out to hoe corn, I was expected to keep up with those two guys. He'd get through and go back his next lane, but Morris would get through and he'd come back and help me. So, and I remember Morris because he was awful aggravated at me, and rightly so, because Dad did favor me in a lot of ways. He let me drive the car, didn't let Morris and what have you. and Morris would go take the, this isn't on tape.
I'm just listening. Just tell
You're
me.
sure you haven't got that tape recorder on?
It won't hurt.
It won't hurt. Just tell your story. I'll cut parts of it out. Don't worry about it.
Anyway, Morris would take the spark plug wires off the car so I couldn't drive it, and Dad would go put them back on. Now that wasn't right. I mean, at the time I thought, oh boy, this is swell, but the more I think about it, the more I think. And we rode our bicycles. I never had a bicycle of my own. It was always one that they'd put together or something. But I remember riding the bicycle up to Holland and going down that hill past the old telephone office where the Dunns lived. There was quite a steep hill there, and at the bottom of the hill across the road was a fence. As mad as Morris used to get at me. When I rode that bicycle down the hill, I didn't make the turn. I hit the fence and broke his front bicycle wheel.
Yeah.
But he was real nice. He let me ride his bicycle home, and he carried that one home. I thought that was pretty nice of him, but I don't know if I ever told him so.
No, I never.
He took me on a motorcycle ride one time. We went to Swanton, up at that turkey farm. It's still a turkey farm, I think, up there. And coming home, that curve there where Snyder's lived, Rose Snyder and Hubbles lived across the street. It's the curve, little curve is still there.
It's still there.
Well, he didn't make the curve, and we ended up on the little hill. It was like a little, but we weren't hurt. We got up and went home. But that's the only time I rode a motorcycle too.
Grandpa, how old were you when did you have to start working on the farm? That was just part of...
Oh, well, that was from when you were a little kid. As soon as you were able to do something.
Yeah.
What?
And
Mow
you,
corn, and drive the horses to fit the ground up for the plantings.
something else you probably don't know. Remember hauling hay into the barn?
Oh, yeah. Then one time.
Well, they had a big fork that come down and went into the hay that was on the wagon, and then it would be pulled up to the...
And then across the roof, it put in a mow. Dropped into the mow.
And I rode that one time and dropped into the mow.